Downtown convention centers an indispensable asset to your region's tourism and economic development strategy? Or are they just fundamentally anti-urbanist and a blight on your central city? Well, we're going to get into the pros and cons, the cities and convention centers that basically get it right, and the ones that get it horribly wrong. And most importantly, what are the best candidates for the inevitable massive urbanism convention we're gonna have if we ever manage to get organized? It's the most urbanist convention centers, March Madness style, coming up next. This is CityNerd, weekly content on cities and transportation, viewer-suggested topics always welcome, and the genesis of this one is kind of unfortunate. It was inspired by a whole Twitter thread where the vast majority of the participants had like cartoon animal profile pics. I don't claim to understand it, but I do have to give credit where credit is due. Now, there are already a lot of kind of urbanism adjacent conferences out there, and I've been to basically all of these at least once, and I've been to a lot of different convention centers, but real talk, most of these conferences are extremely dull. We need to have something that's going to have advocacy and knowledge sharing in it, but is significantly more fun. What I'm thinking is maybe like 25,000 of us all converge on a single city and just overwhelm their transit and bike infrastructure. So the fundamental question in this video is, where are we going to hold UrbanismCon? Because I don't know if you've noticed, but urbanism is big time now. We're not going to have this at some hotel conference center. We need a big venue that's smack in the middle of a transit-rich, walkable downtown somewhere in North America. So before I get into this, let's acknowledge that convention centers are, to put it diplomatically, maybe not an optimal use of prime downtown real estate. If the space isn't booked, it's probably an absolute dead zone. Also, the design of them, you need lots of loading docks, probably a lot of parking, although that can vary. On the other hand, the argument for is pretty straightforward. It's a way to draw huge conventions to your city, and that has some direct benefits to tourism, and some maybe more important secondary benefits in terms of being able to put your city's best foot forward for out-of-town visitors, often out-of-town visitors who might be thinking about locating themselves or their businesses to a new city. So in a way, the urbanism of your convention center becomes a bit of a proxy for the urbanism of your downtown, which is almost always where the convention center is. Okay, criteria. We're talking about a location where thousands of urbanists are going to be hanging out all day. So walking, biking, and transit, definitely. And yes, I'm using walk score for the precise street address of the convention center. And remember, walk score isn't just about how well connected a pedestrian environment is. It's about how many different kinds of destinations you can walk to. So this is something where a massive, poorly designed convention center will absolutely compromise the walk score of the location itself. This will make sense when we get into it. Bike score I'm using, but with a lower weight, and I'm giving bonus points for a bike share system. Transit, I want to know how many lines you can pick up within a half mile and the frequencies they run at. And I looked at Saturdays for this because I envision a weekend thing, and I'm putting a higher weight on fully grade separated heavy rail. Also, bonus for rail connections to the airport since a lot of us will be flying in, and I know we're all going to be good citizens and buy the carbon offsets. Credit for a useful intercity rail station too, within walking distance or at least an easy train ride away. And guess what? It's March, so we're doing this bracket style. I'm going to give you the 4 geographic regions, West, Midwest, East, and South, and I'm going to give you the top 4 seeds for each. This is going to be a little different from how the NCAA does it though, because I'm including Canada, but not Mexico because I just don't have the audience there. And what I did was I divided the states and provinces into 4 roughly population equivalent areas. And I'm going to do the regions in order of overall strength with lots of honorable and dishonorable mentions, so let's get into it. Let's start with the South, and the 4 seed is Houston's George R. Brown Convention Center. Walk score rating of 80, which is as low as I'm going to go here. Right up against I-69, which isn't great for walkability, but the public-facing side opens up onto Discovery Green Park with good access to downtown's protected bike lanes and the light rail system. And it's going to be walkable to a lot of destinations on both the downtown side and east downtown, if TxDOT doesn't rip half of it out. 3 seed El Paso, a walk score rating of 92 with access to the streetcar and a ton of bus routes, including all 3 of the city's Brio BRT lines. Bonus, you can catch a Chihuahuas game or a locomotive match right across the railroad tracks. 2 seed, K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas. Not an amazing walk score rating, and it is a bit of a dead zone near the freeway, but you are going to be within an easy walk of the heart of downtown, and you're going to have access to every line on the DART system, so you've got a rail connection to DFW, and Union Station is right there if you want to catch the TRE or Amtrak. Honorable mention in the South, Music City Center in Nashville didn't fare as well as it could have because I know you people and you'll never stop complaining if there aren't trains to ride at Urbanism Palooza. And yeah, there is a train you can take to Lebanon, Tennessee, but that's it. No intercity, no light rail, not even BRT. Walk score rating of 95 though. Okay, top seed in the South region is Austin, so yeah, all 4 seeds are Texas cities. Best walk score rating and bike score rating in the region. Lots of stuff to bike and walk to, and the Capital Metro Light Rail stops right in front. Let's go to the Midwest region where I have Milwaukee's Baird Center as the 4 seed. Pretty strong walk and bike score ratings, bike share station right at the convention center, centrally located downtown, easy walk to the Milwaukee Intermodal Center for you Chicago folks, and you can catch the Hop streetcar. Number 3, Kansas City. You know, I kind of like the idea of putting a convention center on a freeway lid. I mean, option 1 is just not having a downtown freeway loop in the first place, but it's kind of the ideal land use for this. You're not putting housing there and exposing people to noxious fumes and particulate matter 24/7. Just people who are in town visiting for a couple days. Well, and the poor people have to work at the convention center. Anyway, great walk score, good connectivity to all the different districts around downtown, and the KC streetcar is right there too. The 2 seed is Minneapolis, and this is where we get into a little bit of the tension over what an appropriate site for a convention center is. It would probably score a little better on transit and walkability if it was closer into the core of downtown, but even given that, it's still pretty strong with a 2-way protected bike lane running right in front. The light rail alignment is a bit distant, but honestly, you're probably going to be staying in a hotel that's closer to it than the convention center is, and the light rail connection to the airport is pretty sweet. And hey, I am going to be giving a talk at the convention center as part of the National Planning Conference in mid-April, and I'll probably be doing a local event or meetup of some kind too, so stay tuned, Twin Cities folks. Honorable mention for the Midwest is Winnipeg. Like in Nashville, the train situation is dire. I think there's like 1 intercity train a week, but pretty nice walk and bike score ratings. And top seed in the Midwest, Metro Toronto Convention Center. Extremely central. It's like a block away from Union Station, so you're going to be able to get Line 1 and all the regional rail, and it's going to be walkable to practically every streetcar line in the city. Fantastic walk and bike score ratings and tons of stuff to do within 3 or 4 blocks. I mean, if we're gonna actually do UrbanismCon, shouldn't it be in as urbanist a place as possible? Toronto is gonna be tough to beat in any region, but I do still have the 2 strongest overall regions still to come and some very unfortunate dishonorable mentions that we have to discuss. But first, usual reminder to engage all the screen elements, hit the notification bell to find out when Urbanism Palooza gets scheduled. Connect on all the usual websites, and direct support via Patreon does really keep this channel running. Okay, my definition of dishonorables is when you Google a list of the quote-unquote best convention centers, and there are these behemoth facilities that are plopped down in the middle of a bunch of surface parking. Las Vegas is a great example of this, and yeah, it is connected to other parts of the city by the monorail, but the immediate area is just completely misbegotten. The Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, similarly uninspiring. I mean, I think you can walk to Red Lobster and Dave & Buster's and that's about it. And I can't even figure out where the transit is, if there is any. Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta. Really good access to MARTA, but somehow a worse walk score than Orlando. Just kind of disconnected from the central city, and the main entrance is on a strode that feels like you're nowhere near downtown. And McCormick Place in Chicago, which is massive and I think well regarded in the conventioneering industry, but when you paste the address into walkscore.com, you get absolutely atrocious results. Walkscore is pretty sensitive though. Like if I put in the address for the West Building, which interfaces much better with the city's grid, you get a vastly different result. So maybe McCormick is an honorable? I don't know. Let's go to the West region where it's very competitive 4 through 7, but the San Diego Convention Center squeezes into the 4th seed. The bayfront location is going to make it really good for walking and biking in. So is the weather probably, but I don't think the walk and bike score ratings are lying here. Great access to the gas lamp quarter and the rest of downtown. Light rail station right out front, which will get you to Santa Fe Depot if you need it. The bus connection to the airport is actually pretty slick, even though I didn't give bonus points. But I vote yes on this one. 3 seed in the West, Oregon Convention Center in Portland. Actually surprised it rates as well as it does for walk score, since most of the surrounding area is kind of a freeway interchange / urban renewal dead zone. But the area has been improving gradually, and the bike score is legit since it is Portland, and the East Bank Esplanade is right there. The thing that puts this above San Diego, though, is the really good transit access. Basically every line on the MAX network converges here, including the red line to the airport. And the East Side streetcar is right here too, and let's face it, the East Side is gonna be way more fun than downtown anyway. 2 seed, Vancouver, BC. I feel like this is kind of an ideal location for a convention center. On the edge of downtown, out on a pier on the harbor, but oriented to interface with the city. If you've never been to Vancouver, it's hard to overstate just how spectacular downtown is in terms of the grid, and the urban design, and the natural setting. But it's really the transit that elevates this one. Access to all 3 SkyTrain lines, including the Canada line to the airport. Trains every 3 to 6 minutes on Saturdays in a metro area of about 2.5 million. That's like Charlotte or Austin size. Just amazing stuff. Honorables in the West, there are actually like 8 to 10 other convention centers that would make the cut if they were in the South region, but I'll just highlight the other 3 locations that were competitive for the 4th seed. LA, reasonable choice, but you really needed a walk score rating in the 90s to make the cut. Seattle, I've been to a lot of events here. I like that they put it on a freeway lid instead of consuming more valuable downtown real estate. And honestly walkable to downtown and sort of walkable to Capitol Hill. It's really good, but the West is just too competitive. And the Colorado Convention Center, good transit access, good biking, actually a pretty good pedestrian environment in my opinion, but just not enough in this region. And the top seed is the Moscone Center in San Francisco, a city that gets a bad rap these days, but be serious. This is generally a really good walking environment, pretty good bike infrastructure, tons of nearby destinations, and the variety of transit lines you can pick up on Market Street is pretty ridiculous. All the BART lines, except Orange, with connections to both SFO and Oakland International. There's the Central Subway, and basically all the other Muni rail lines run on Market, and there are 2 cable car lines, if you're into that sort of thing. Okay, let's do the East region, also incredibly competitive. I've got Pittsburgh David L. Lawrence Convention Center as the 4. Kind of a similar approach to Vancouver, putting it on the water but orienting it to downtown where it opens up onto a very walkable grid with amazing urban fabric. I hate to use the term Rust Belt, but Pittsburgh is probably the best preserved of this category of US city. Walkable to all the city's rail lines, walkable to the Amtrak station, and I gave credit for the proximity to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. East Busway too. I did not give bonus points for hosting the Anthrocon Furry Convention. Whether that's a plus for you is a personal choice. I'll leave between you and your plush toy costume. 3 seed Montreal, walk score rating of 100, the only such score in all the research I did. I got to explore this facility a bit last year when I was exploring the underground city. Would I say it's a more walkable environment than the Moscone Center? I don't know that I would, but the numbers are the numbers. Good bike score, bonus points for the fantastic bike share system, and the Orange Line subway runs right underneath, which is good because, just my opinion, downtown Montreal is a bit underwhelming compared to all the neighborhoods you can get to from downtown by bike or rail. 2nd seed, the Walter E. Washington Convention Center in DC. I've been to this one a couple times just because the Transportation Research Board meets here every January, and I can confirm it is extremely walkable, even in Arctic blast type weather conditions. DC in general just has this compactness and connectedness to it that makes it very different from other US cities. You're gonna have good bike share access, and the metro is gonna be right here as well, including an extremely convenient connection to National Airport and good access to Union Station for all you Northeast Corridor denizens. Honorable mentions, Javits in New York doesn't make the cut, mostly because of the shockingly low walk score, given that it is kind of in Midtown Manhattan. But even with all the development in Hudson Yards and the relatively recent 7 extension, it's still kind of a dead zone. New York is great, obviously, but this is just not a fun location. And honorable to Baltimore Convention Center, kind of a prime location in the downtown/inner harbor area. There's heavy rail and light rail connections to Penn Station and BWI. So this would actually rate pretty well in the Midwest region and challenge for the 1 seed in the South, but the East is just too competitive. Okay, top seed in the East, the Pennsylvania Convention Center in Center City, Philadelphia. Not a 100 walk score rating, apparently, but you could have fooled me since there are a million things to walk to here. Access to every SEPTA service imaginable, basically all the heavy rail and all the trolley lines and the PATCO. Regional rail connection to the airport, which you can catch right at Jefferson Station. And honestly, I didn't analyze it this way, although I probably should have. It is just about maximally accessible by rail for the most possible people who watch American Urbanist YouTube, so that's gotta be worth something. Does it win out over San Francisco or Toronto in a potential final, or Vancouver for that matter? I'll leave that for you to ponder. And that's all I got. Thanks for joining, and thanks as always to the patrons whose contributions really give me the freedom to change it up every week. I'm half joking about having an Urbanism palooza, but let me know down in the comments if you think I omitted any good locations, and also let me know where you think we should hold this thing, which is inevitably gonna happen. Event organizers, get cracking. Keep the great topic suggestions coming. I'll be back with a new episode next week, and I'll see you then.